role to play as America and indeed the world are going through these very difficult, very troubling times. So the role of the new media, as of course as the role of the old media, is always to bear witness and to speak the truth about what is happening. The advantage of new media is that now you can have millions of people bearing witness, as we saw during the Iran uprising. Even when the Iran regime tried to block mainstream media, CNN, others, from telling the story, they could not stop people with their own cameras and their cell phones telling the story, tweeting, Facebooking, and basically informing us of what was happening. This is something which would not have happened in the previous decade. And we're seeing that across this country, as citizen journalists are telling stories of what's happening. At the Huffington Post, we now have 2 reporters whose only job is to put flesh and blood on the economic data. Because I believe that as journalists, we are not doing a good enough job of explaining what's happening around the country. We are too focused on numbers and on polling data. And I can stand here and tell you that there are 26 million people unemployed or underemployed or too discouraged to look for work. But that doesn't mean as much as telling you individual stories of what's happening. Like the first story in my book is of Dean Blackburn. A man who was brought up by a single mom in Minnesota. He worked hard, he got into Yale. He had jobs in high tech for 17 years. He lost his job 2 years ago and did not get another job. And there are hundreds of thousands of people in this country, educated people, people who played completely by the rules, and now they cannot see how they will create the next job for themselves and how they're going to be able to move their family onto a safe financial ground. We need to tell the stories, and we also need to tell the stories of success, of how people are overcoming obstacles, the way they're using social media to connect and to help each other. That's an amazing story that dominates section 5 of my book, and actually if you are too busy to read the whole book, please just read section 5 because it's all about solutions, and that's what we need to focus on. And our job in the media is to cover the stories, to put the spotlight on them, and to spend much more time on these stories than we have been spending on stories that really do not deserve the attention they're getting, whether it is Balloon Boy. And remember Balloon Boy? He shouldn't even have been called a Balloon Boy because he was never in the balloon. He should have been called the Attic Boy. And if you go back and replay the breaking news, breathless coverage, it is deeply embarrassing. And I almost thought that maybe, given that there are at the moment hundreds of thousands of children in this country who are homeless, who are living in poverty, who are living in inner cities in danger of accidental death at any time from random violence, maybe we can construct a huge balloon and put them all in, or at least pretend to put them all in, and get like 10% of the attention Balloon Boy. Or Reverend Jones. You know, this was a man who had 30 followers in Florida, who suddenly became a sensation, receiving calls from the Secretary of Defense because of the way the media played out the story. And so I think those of us in the media need to acknowledge our responsibility in what kind of stories we cover, the oxygen we give them, and what kind of stories we don't cover. Journalism has always been about ferreting out the truth. But there came a time when somehow it was assumed that our job as journalists was simply to present both sides to a story and assume that the truth is to be found somewhere in the middle. But that's not really the case. Often the truth is solidly on one side or the other. You know, the earth is not flat, period. You know, imagine having a debate on television between flat earthers and people who believe the earth is round. You know, this would not happen anymore. It would not be seen as serious journalism. And yet, we have debates like that, where it's about creation, about global warming. It's important to establish the facts when they are knowable. And it is our job to clearly present the facts. And anybody has a right to their own opinions, but not to their own set of facts. But these are not normal times. These are sort of, this is an inflection point in history. And so we all have a sort of greater responsibility, whatever our job, whether in the media or not, to play our roles in making sure that this battle that's going on now between the better angels of our nature and our basest instincts is going to be won by the forces of good and progress and all that brings us together here, and that this country has been so exceptional about. Thank you.